The rehearsal dinner was everything Jake's family had planned: grand, glitzy, and over the top. The venue sparkled under the sheen of crystal chandeliers, the kind that seemed to drop raindrops of light onto the immaculate white tablecloths, adorned with delicate centerpieces of fresh flowers. Each corner of the room whispered stories of high society, and it felt like my humble origins were shouting back at me. I could sense the disparity. The opulence around me was suffocating. As I stepped into the room, I held my chin up high, masking the turmoil in my heart. Everyone was mingling, laughter bubbling over like champagne in flutes. I moved with purpose, but as I glanced around, my stomach turned. There were whispers and furtive glances directed my way, a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "Look at her, she's just a street girl," Sandra, Jake's mother, said with a condescending laugh, as if I were an uninvited guest somehow mistaken for a member of their elite circle. Her words hit me like lead, dulling my senses for a brief moment. I caught the way the others chimed in, chuckling, their laughter ringing like chimes in the wind, an insidious melody that only added to my growing shame. My heart raced, the feeling of isolation swelling inside me. It was in moments like these that memories from my childhood flooded back, uninvited. I remembered the ramshackle neighborhood where I grew up, paint peeling from the houses, streets that knew more about struggle than privilege. From the corner of my eye, I saw Jake's brother Max lean toward his sister Lisa, their contemptuous eyes glued to me, the air thick with judgment that only intensified my discomfort. "Let's just hope she doesn't embarrass Jake at the wedding," I heard Max say, his voice dripping with condescension. It felt as though they were using my past as a weapon, and I stood there, caught in the crossfire of their ridicule. "They think I'm nothing," I thought, pushing down the wave of humiliation that threatened to surface. My resolve tightened, every ounce of training I had as a Navy lieutenant surfacing in those moments of stress. Composure was my armor. I would not let them see me break. Inwardly, I thought of my position, the sacrifices I had made, the hours of training, night watches on deployment, the surge of adrenaline as I led my team through dangerous waters and high-pressure situations. Every challenge had sculpted me into someone capable, someone worthy of respect. But here in this room, I felt like a mere shadow, reduced to the labels they had conjured, labels that claimed I was merely the girl from the wrong side of the tracks. They underestimated my journey while they were busy judging my past, I reminded myself, steadying my breath. I willed my heart rate to slow, pushing the words through my mind like the cadence of a drill, the mantra that would guide me through this humiliation. I was more than their perception, more than the label they sought to pin on me, and I silently vowed that I would show them the truth. Jake's conflicted expression caught my attention again, frozen between the loyalty to his family and the love he felt for me. I could see the anguish in his eyes, a reflection of the tension that pervaded the moment. Though deeply embarrassed, he was trying to help me yet fearful of drawing attention to himself. My heart ached for him. I didn't want to be the source of his discomfort, nor the target of his family's disdain. As the courses of the dinner went on, I remained composed, replying to queries with polite smiles and carefully chosen words. Inside, the storm of emotions raged. I pulled each breath deep within me, gathering strength, reminding myself that I was more than their mockery. I had navigated through complexities far greater than the petty judgments of social elite. Dinner progressed, each clink of silverware a reminder of the distance between us. Somewhere in the shadows of my mind, I could feel the push and pull of regret and resolve. Did I belong here? Would they ever see me for who I was? What I had accomplished? When the main course arrived, I caught more whispers, the barbed comments aiming for my confidence. This wasn't just discomfort, it was an attack on my dignity, and they were oblivious to the strength I had cultivated like a beacon through the darkest nights. "Emily, be careful with the wine," Sandra chimed as she eyed my glass with disdain, a topsy-turvy smile etched on her face. I recalled the times I had been laughed at as a child, coming home with stories of my own victories forgotten while enduring the sneers of neighbors who looked at my family with contempt. Deep breaths. I needed to channel that hurt into strength. This moment would not define me. I would rise. As laughter erupted again, I once again caught Jake's eye. He was increasingly uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. My heart broke for him. I leaned closer to him, attempting to convey a sense of calm assurance, a silent message that I would endure, that I held my ground. Every laugh, every sarcastic quip stoked a fire within me. They seemed to be unaware that their words had galvanized my determination. When the moment came, I would be ready to reclaim my place, to rise above their sneers and show them the powerful officer that lay beneath the title of street girl. I was ready to face the storm. A moment was approaching. I could feel it gathering on the horizon. What they didn't know was that every obstacle I had faced fortified me for this very battle. I resolved to stand firm, wear my Navy achievements like armor, and soon they would understand the woman who truly sat among them. Let me know if you would like to proceed with Block 2 or make any adjustments. As I sat at the rehearsal dinner, a glittering affair where the clink of crystal and the soft rustle of silk created a symphony of excess, I felt transported back to my past. Surrounded by opulence, I couldn't help but drift into memories of a world much less glamorous. My childhood was rooted in a modest neighborhood, a small block where the sun rarely broke through the heavy clouds of poverty that seemed to loom my entire life. I grew up in a house that, much like my family, had seen better days. With peeling paint and a creaky front porch, it bore the weight of our struggles yet stood resilient against the backdrop of our lives. My parents worked hard, their daily sacrifices forming a tapestry of grit and endurance. My father held down 2 jobs, one as a mechanic, the other working late nights at a gas station, while my mother tended to our small garden, coaxing life from the stubborn soil even when the world outside felt unforgiving. Each vegetable she grew was an act of rebellion against the harshness we lived in, and her hands, calloused and worn, reflected the care she poured into our family. I remember the days when I would watch her, soaking in the strength she embodied, the way she nurtured every seedling as if they were parts of herself. Those moments instilled in me a profound appreciation for hard work. I spent many afternoons in that garden, my fingers buried in the dirt, learning patience, resilience, and the hope that one day I could rise above our circumstances. But despite our efforts, the world around us was often unkind. I recall bitter whispers from neighbors who exchanged judgmental glances. I was the poor girl in their eyes, a target for their condescension and scorn. I overheard one neighbor say, "She'll never amount to anything. Just look at her." My heart ached at such dismissive words, igniting a fire within me. Instead of shrinking in the face of their derision, I grew more determined. Their judgments fueled my ambition to escape the confines of their narrow-mindedness, to transform myself into someone worthy of respect. In high school, I swiftly learned that success often came dressed in the shrouds of discomfort. I excelled academically, driven by the desire to break free from the cycle of poverty that surrounded me. I joined clubs and participated in extracurricular activities. Yet with each success, I encountered the sharp barbs of resentment from peers. "She's just getting by on scholarships," I once overheard, a remark that echoed through the halls of my school. Their disdain hung heavy in the air, threatening to engulf me. Yet I channeled that bitterness into my studies, using it as motivation to prove them wrong. When I first contemplated joining the Navy, it felt as though I were seeking not just a career, but a form of liberation. I envisioned the military as the ultimate challenge, a chance to rise above societal expectations and to carve my own path. The decision did not come lightly. I spent countless nights weighing my options, battling the fear of failure against the longing for purpose. The day I walked into the recruiting office was a turning point, a visceral moment of clarity amidst all the chaos within. The officer who greeted me saw something in my eyes, perhaps the fire ignited by years of criticism and hardship. "Are you sure this is the path you want to take?" he asked, skepticism coloring his tone. But I felt the steel in my resolve. I wasn't just walking and seeking a job. I was ready to fight for my identity, to turn the tides of metrics figuring my worth into something tangible, something powerful. "More than anything, sir," I had replied with conviction, a determination trembling at the edge of my voice. The rigorous training that followed was no easy feat. It tested my limits in ways I never anticipated. The early mornings, the relentless drills, the mental and physical challenges, each component shaped me into something I had longed for but never quite recognized. I was becoming someone stronger, someone who could withstand the pressures of judgment. With every rank I ascended, seaman, petty officer, and then finally, officer, I found myself shedding layers of self-doubt, revealing the grit and resilience forged over years of adversity. As I evolved, so too did my resolve to keep my achievements close to my chest. Each time I returned home, the sting of condescension from Jake's family loomed over me like a thick fog. "Oh, isn't that sweet? Emily's little Navy job," Robert would say with a lopsided grin, as if belittling the tremendous effort I put into serving. Their remarks scratched at the surface, igniting those familiar feelings of inadequacy, but I buried them beneath a layer of pride. I wore my uniform and medals as badges of honor, knowing that beneath their mockery lay real accomplishments, earned through sacrifice and sheer willpower. The tension at family gatherings often surged like a living entity, palpable and weighty. Every glance, every whispered comment slashed at the surface of my composure, but I was determined to rise above, each gathering a test of my mettle. I feigned indifference while the judgment swirled around me. They had no inkling of the sheer grit and determination that accompanied my success, nor the sacrifices that paved the path to the woman I had become. I refused to let their misconceptions define me any longer. I knew reconciliation could come, but only on my terms, a day when I would unveil my identity as more than just their poster child for scorn. I envisioned confronting their perceptions, turning the tables on their stereotypes. But that day had not yet arrived. Their ignorance lulled me into a careful patience, preparing my heart for the inevitable clash. I couldn't help but think that one day I would stand as a testament to resilience, breaking through the facade they had built in their minds. I had become an officer in the Navy, a title that echoed with pride and purpose, reflecting the countless sacrifices I had made. The day would come when they would recognize that I was a force to be reckoned with, not just a girl from the neighborhood they had written off, but a leader in the making. But as the rehearsal dinner continued, the gravity of my past battled against the glimmer of the present. They could not know that each judgment only thickened my skin, built my resolve, and fortified my spirit to rise beyond the superficial assumptions they held. I steeled myself, ready to confront the tide of emotions brewing within me as I prepared for the moment when my truth would emerge in full view. With each passing moment, I confirmed my commitment to transformation, steadying my breath as the gatherings swirled around me, preparing for what lay ahead. I was no longer defined by whispers or scorn. I had earned a badge of honor that they would soon come to respect. I was ready for whatever storm awaited. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with Block 3 or make any adjustments. The clinking of glasses grew louder as the evening wore on, the laughter around me morphing into an almost mocking cadence. Each giggle and snide whisper felt like small daggers, just waiting for the chance to break through my carefully cultivated composure. My heart raced, realizing that this gathering, this moment of unrestrained condescension, was building to a breaking point. Every ounce of resolve I had summoned was teetering on the edge, and I felt the weight of my past pressing down on me, yet a quiet storm brewed inside. "Emily, could you pass the wine?" Sandra's voice cut through the air, sweet yet dripping with insincerity. I could see her eyes glimmering with a taunting light, as if she was trying to trip me up, all while maintaining her sickly smile. "I hope you can handle it. I wouldn't want you to accidentally spill it on your uniform. We wouldn't want to tarnish that Navy image now, would we?" The laughter that followed felt like a wave crashing over me, one I fought hard not to let engulf me completely. But a shift in the air, something both ominous and liberating, flickered in my chest. This evening wasn't just a rehearsal dinner. It felt more like a stage, one where I was expected to perform as the punching bag of their mockery. I could see Jake sighing heavily beside me, his discomfort palpable. His kind eyes searched mine, silently pleading for me to stay calm, but I could sense the burning tide of my own anger rising in response to their dismissive tones. Each laugh around me reverberated as if daring me to finally stand up, to claim my space and challenge the preconceptions they had pinned on me like medals on a soldier's uniform. Their laughter echoed off the walls, taunting the spirit of the girl who had endured so much to belong, whose entire existence somehow seemed to exist solely as a punchline to their narrow perspectives. Wouldn't it be amusing if Emily tried to direct a Navy operation? Can you imagine? Sandra continued, her voice higher and more jarring with each word. Another surge of laughter erupted around the table, filling the air like a rush of heat. I felt my hands clench into fists beneath the table, the urge to retaliate slowly spreading through my veins, fierce and exhilarating. Just then, something inside me snapped. The years of careful restraint began to dissolve. I was tired of hiding, tired of being the small target they could easily shoot down with their barbs. I took a deep breath and forced myself to sit taller, allowing the bitterness of their scorn to forge strength within me. The storm was ready to break, and I was the eye of that cyclone, resolute. "Actually, Sandra," I interjected, my voice steady yet charged with a calm intensity, "I have successfully directed operations in the Navy that involved thousands of lives and required strategic precision. I assure you, it's far more complex than hosting dinner parties." A quiet, hushed tone fell over the room as my words sliced through their laughter like a knife, creating a ripple of tension that could no longer be ignored. The air thrummed as I continued. "You see, what you don't know about me, and what you seem intent on overlooking, is that I am proud of my service. I wear my achievements as a badge of honor. I fought for every single one of them." Each word thundered from my chest, rising as if my ship had finally reached the harbor after years at sea. As their expressions shifted, I realized I had seized the helm of this conversation. The tides were turning. Jake's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and appreciation swirling within them. It was this moment, this realization, that fueled my determination to not merely defend myself, but to reclaim the narrative that had so often spiraled out of my control. I had trained with extraordinary men and women, faced unparalleled challenges, and overcame adversities that would crush many. They could no longer reduce me to a playful jab. I was ready to emerge from the shadows. "But isn't that what you've always done?" Robert sneered, regaining his composure almost instantly. "Play the victim? It's kind of sweet how you've matured your delusions into some half-baked career in the Navy." His backhanded comments lit a fire in my gut. A typical response, yet they fueled my conviction even more. With every ounce of bravery I possessed, I would harness the strength of my experiences, not only for me, but for anyone who had ever been forgotten, belittled, or cast aside. The specter of my childhood loomed large, standing there beside me, whispering the words of the neighbors who had mocked and sneered. I felt her presence, a reminder of every moment I had endured either in silence or with quiet dignity. The time for that silence had passed. "You know, Robert," I countered, leaning in, "back then I might have listened to your words, but now I know my worth, and I hope one day you'll understand what it means to genuinely respect the strength of others." Another wave of silence washed over the table, their expressions an intriguing mix of confusion and disbelief. Some looked away, almost embarrassed, while others tried to regain their footing and reassert their mockery. But something fundamental had changed. The atmosphere around us, charged with tension, felt more like a battlefield than a gathering of snide laughter. Before could respond, a distant sound interrupted, the unmistakable cadence of boots striking the floor, a powerful rhythm echoing in the distance. I turned to see a formation of Navy personnel enter the room, their uniforms sharp, the pride radiating from them like a lighthouse amidst a storm. Each step they took resonated with authority, and I felt the air shift once more, transforming the atmosphere entirely. "Admiral on deck!" The word rang out, penetrating the silence like cannon fire. My heart raced as I stood to acknowledge them, each knee bending in a crisp salute as my uniform somehow felt like a mantle being lifted above me. The other guests, the would-be critics, the dismissive family, shifted in their seats, their laughter replaced by stunned admiration. The realization washed over me. This moment was no longer about proving myself. It was about acknowledging the myriad sacrifices and accomplishments that had led me to this position. The commanding officer stepped forward, an air of reverence surrounding him as he announced, "Admiral Emily Williams, reporting for duty." The title hung in the air like a feathered mantle slowly descending upon my shoulders, unfamiliar yet intoxicatingly sweet. It was a proclamation that shattered the facade of my existence among these critics. unraveling their perceptions as they sought to reclaim control. I turned to see my father's expression morph from one of condescension to astonishment. The laughter which once filled the room replaced by a hum of respect. I felt the warmth of their admiration shift towards me, like an incoming tide that could no longer be resisted. My heart soared as a swell of pride coursed through me. This was my moment, one carefully crafted through years of overshadowed valor. I held that recognition like a shield against the weight of their sneers. The truth had unfolded before them like a map leading to a final destination: recognition. In that instant, I understood the profound weight of my journey. I was never just a street girl, the girl they had dismissed or disregarded. I was an admiral, a leader among peers, and I felt every moment of who I had become flooding my spirit. Understanding displayed on Jake's face blended with delight as he approached, standing by my side. We would tackle this together. This was our victory, not just mine. As the thunderous applause erupted around me, I couldn't help but smile. The moment had come, and I stood ready to embrace it fully. The laughter had transformed. It was no longer a weapon aimed at me, but a harmonious acknowledgement of triumph. And as I looked around the room filled with my family, most appeared uncertain, but an undeniable respect festered from that moment of revelation onward. The tide shifted unfathomably, and this time, I would not let anyone turn back the clock on what I had achieved. I resolved that those who once cast judgment would now celebrate my journey. The storm had broken, and I had emerged victorious. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with Block 4 or make any adjustments. The applause washed over me like a wave, each clap resounding in my heart, affirming my worth in a way that felt surreal. I stood still, letting the moment sink in, allowing the echoes of all those years of struggle to mingle with the heady joy of recognition. Yet in the depth of this triumph lay an undercurrent of emotions, whispers of my past intertwining with the present, as I processed the sea of faces now looking upon me with a mix of respect and astonishment. A nervous energy crackled in the air, a silent agreement that this evening had crossed a threshold neither I nor anyone else could unsee or undo. I caught sight of my father, his face paling further than I ever thought possible. Gone was the nonchalant air he wore so comfortably. In its place was a fragile mix of confusion and dawning clarity. My heart twisted slightly at the sight. The old wounds throbbed, a juxtaposition of pride and hurt that left me momentarily breathless. I had fought my entire life to be seen and acknowledged, and now that the day had arrived, it was hard to extinguish the ember of bitterness residing deep within me. Still, I couldn't dwell too long on my father's reaction, for more pressing matters unfurled before me. The Navy personnel stood at attention, a proud formation embodying everything I had worked towards. The bond among us, forged through training and combat, swirled in my heart, and their respectful nods made me feel grounded yet elevated at once. They were here to honor me, to commemorate the journey of a woman who refused to be relegated to a stereotype. I glanced at Jake, and the pride flashing across his features filled me with warmth. A smile spread across my lips, and in that moment, I reassured him silently that together we were stronger, that our shared hopes and commitments had led to this victory. I could see the gleam in his eyes, genuine admiration in a landscape once dominated by doubt and ridicule from his family. We had conquered a battlefield of perceptions together, and that unspoken alliance knitted us closer than ever. The commanding officer stepped forward once again, his presence commanding attention. "Admiral Williams," he began crisply, "we are honored to celebrate your achievements tonight. Your service has not only made a difference in your career, it has echoed throughout the Navy, a testament to resilience, integrity, and perseverance." Each syllable seemed to resonate, drawing the atmosphere taut, each word weaving itself into the fabric of my being. I could feel the nervous commotion subside into a palpable respect, shifting the dynamics within the room as I stood before a crowd that had once underestimated me. The formal words spun around me. I found myself transported back to those dreary days filled with doubt and scorn, yet I was no longer that girl. "Tonight, we honor you not as Admiral Williams alone, but as a symbol of how determination can shatter barriers. May this moment inspire all gathered here." With that, he stepped back, allowing the applause to roll forth again, enveloping me like a shield against all the years of scorn I had endured. But then there was a voice, sharp, jarring, like a nail scraping sandpaper. Yes, well, isn't it nice? All this pomp and circumstance for a girl who just got lucky? It was Robert, his smooth condescension cutting through the merriment. I felt heat pooling in my cheeks again, not from embarrassment, but from the burgeoning fury ready to explode. His comment triggered my every memory of being mocked and dismissed, a flame that ignited deep within. I took a moment to steady my breath. The emotional surge could easily have thrown me off course, but I refused to let it. Instead, I chose to confront the tension head-on. "Luck has nothing to do with it, Robert," I responded, my voice low but firm. "Luck implies being at the right place at the right time. What I have achieved stems from years of relentless effort and sacrifice. If you'd truly taken the time to see beyond your prejudice, you would know that." Silence enveloped the room, heads turning to catch a glimpse of Robert's reaction. I could feel the weight of their gaze, a mix of shock and respect for my unwavering courage. I had never before addressed him directly. This felt like a moment written in a script, capitalizing on an effortless confrontation between light and shadows. But as I looked around, I sensed an unanticipated camaraderie growing, almost palpable in the air. The other guests exchanged glances, uncertain yet curious to see how this clash would unfold. And yet this was a clash I was prepared for. "Let's not forget," I continued. "This is not just about my accomplishments, but about my journey. I was once that girl you all dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated. I fought against all odds to make something of myself, and I'm proud of where I stand today." My declaration echoed through the hall, each word anchored in truth. The applause that erupted this time felt different, lacking the sheen of condescension. This wasn't merely reverberating approval. It was a recognition of my journey, of the struggles faced on the battlefield of judgments, and the transformation born of courage and tenacity. As Robert stammered for a comeback, I could sense the tide truly turning. The shock painted across his face, mingled with a helpless realization that his power over my past had diminished as I boldly stood tall. Why should I let old wounds dictate today's happiness? The confidence emanating from me contrasted sharply with the past doubts that wrapped around me like chains. "Not every struggle ends in triumph," I completed, my voice rising with conviction. "There are those who will always doubt you, no matter how hard you work. But our journeys, the battles we fight, define us, not the judgments cast upon us by others." Within moments, I had become a beacon of inspiration, turning the mockery of my upbringing into a lesson of resilience. I watched as several guests exchanged murmurs, reassessing their views on my journey. Even Sandra, who had sparked my earliest discomfort, seemed to pause and ponder my words. Her gaze lingered, possibly awed or shaken. In this charged atmosphere, I realized that my journey had opened doors not just for me, but for anyone who had felt like an outsider. Perhaps my experience could become more than just a personal story. It could transform into a narrative of hope, resilience, and reinvention. The evening wore on, and I was determined not to let Robert's words dissipate the momentum I had gathered. Instead, I seized the opportunity to engage, to share anecdotes from my service that bespoke perseverance. The tales of comrades turned family, friendships forged through adversity while deployed in hostile environments, and the laughter shared even in the darkest of times became vibrant portraits on the canvas of our conversations. I interspersed these tales with lighthearted humor, bringing people in, inviting them to connect to not just the admiral, but to the woman behind the uniform. As I explored each thread of my journey, the atmosphere continued to shift, breaking through the barrier of their assumptions. I could sense the whispers continue, but this time, they weren't sharp munitions, but rather soft exchanges of admiration and curiosity. "I didn't know she had done that," I heard one person murmur to another, reshaping misjudgments slowly but surely. Eventually, I gathered my strength and spoke once more, addressing the crowd that surrounded me. I stand before all of you today, not just a Navy officer, but a champion of resilience. Every one of us has the power to change not only ourselves, but the narratives surrounding us. Our journeys matter, and they have the potential to uplift others. The applause rose once more and lingered in the air, a respectful nod to the power of perseverance, solidarity, and defiance against doubts. Jake's warm gaze met mine amidst the symphony of applause, and he conveyed a powerful reminder of strength blossoming in unity. The approval and warmth radiating from the people around us filled the air, each clap urging me to continue embracing the woman I had become. This evening would not only mark a pivotal moment in my life, it became a bridge towards reconciliation, toward rebuilding relationships even in the aftermath of uncertainty. Every proud smile I encountered reflected the journey we all shared, theirs and mine, which came full circle in a celebration of connection against odds, once dictating separateness. The applause crescendoed, echoing like a victory bell as I welcomed the changing tide, moving towards reconciliation not just with others, but with my authentic self. And as the evening unfolded, I knew that the tides had indeed shifted, and that my journey upward had just begun. I had transformed not only in their eyes, but in my heart, and I was ready to embrace whatever future awaited. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with Block 5 or make any adjustments. The applause washed over me like a wave of warmth, a tide of recognition that reaffirmed my journey. I stood there, the center of attention amid the cheers and admiration that filled the room, feeling as if the weight of years I had fought against finally lifted. I was not just a Navy officer in that moment. I had become a living testament to resilience, a beacon of strength born from the struggles I endured along my journey. In the midst of the applause, the conversation shifted in hushed whispers among the crowd. "I didn't know she had done that," I overheard someone say. The words floated to me like a soft breeze, both affirming and heartening. There was intrigue where once there had been disdain, and slowly, the layers of misunderstanding peeled away. Their perceptions were reshaping, and I could feel the collective acknowledgement of my efforts entwining with the stories still unfurling around us. Just then, the atmosphere in the room crackled as the double doors swung open wide. Instinctively, I straightened, a thrill rushing through me as I turned my head toward the entrance. My heart raced, the very air charged with anticipation. In perfect precision, a formation of Navy SEALs strode into the hall, their movements so synchronized that it was as if the ground itself pulsed with their arrival. The sight of the SEALs, so disciplined and sharp in their uniforms, captured the room's undivided attention. Even Robert's formerly haughty demeanor morphed into stunned silence, an aura of awe sweeping through the audience. The commanding officer's presence commanded respect. He stepped forward with poise and purpose, raising his hand in a precise salute that resonated through the space. "Admiral on deck!" Time slowed as I leaned into the pulse of the environment, soaking in the gravity of the moment. The sound of boots striking the polished floor reverberated with a powerful rhythm, and a palpable mix of pride and anticipation surged through me. My inhale was deep but measured, grounding myself in the lessons I had learned from both my training and the tribulations of my past. I straightened my back, embodying the poise and composure that came from years dedicated to upholding the values of integrity, courage, and honor. As the commanding officer continued, addressing the crowd with unwavering confidence, "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we gather not just to celebrate an officer's promotion, but the incredible journey and achievements of someone who has exemplified commitment to our Navy, Admiral Sarah Williams." The room erupted into applause once again, a powerful swell that coursed through me like a gentle tide washing over a strained shoreline. It was a reminder that recognition was within reach, that every hardship endured was finally being acknowledged in the most profound way. I couldn't help but feel my heart swell with pride at the honor bestowed upon me, the culmination of hard work, sacrifice, and relentless perseverance. Each clap resonated as an affirmation of my value, echoing throughout the hall like resounding waves against rocky cliffs. As the applause cascaded around me, I turned my focus to the SEALs. Their proud stance spoke volumes, and I knew in that moment that I was joined by a community of individuals whose courage mirrored my own. Their shared experiences anchored the recognition that sparked within us all. This wasn't just about me. It was a celebration of every individual who had ever faced doubt and emerged victorious through commitment and service. Admiral Williams has served with unwavering dedication, leading by example and embodying the spirit of the Navy, the officer proclaimed, his voice both powerful and sincere. Her story is not one written solely of personal triumph. It's woven with the stories of countless others who have served alongside her. This medal is a symbol of that journey, and tonight we celebrate the tenacity of spirit that she represents. The SEALs then unveiled a ceremonial medal, its gleaming surface reflecting the light and the emotion swirling around us. As it was presented to me, it felt both heavy and refreshing, laden with the weight of responsibility, but also filled with honor. This was a token not just of rank, but also of all those who had walked the arduous journey with me, and I felt a rush of emotion surge through me as I grasped it tightly. My voice quivered with pride as I spoke. Thank you. Thank you so much for this incredible honor. I stand here not only as Admiral Williams, but as someone who has climbed the mountains of adversity, and I know that many of you in this room share in that struggle. This medal is not just mine, it is ours. The crowd responded with resounding applause, a chorus of support that felt more transformative than I could have dared to imagine. I glanced around, observing the mixed emotions reflected in the faces of my family. The formal recognition of my achievements at that moment provided a glimpse of hope for understanding, especially from my father, whose expression had begun to shift from skepticism to something more akin to pride. Then, amidst the renewed vigor of shouts and cheers, I locked eyes with my brother. I had fought alongside him in this tumultuous journey, both of us battling the storm of familial expectations against the backdrop of our unwavering support for each other. I could see the unmistakable pride in his demeanor, the acknowledgement of my struggle and how it transformed me. Together, we have faced the darkest storms, I continued, my voice steadying and gaining strength. Each challenge endured led us to this moment. Every misjudgment cast upon us was met with resilience, and it is a reminder that we are all capable of achieving greatness, even when the odds feel insurmountable. As I spoke, the memories of my past echoed like distant thunder. The nights spent awake, the sweat dripping off my brow as I trained endlessly, and the sacrifices made along the way. Each story was now a thread woven into the tapestry of who I was, and as I shared those moments of vulnerability, I felt walls falling all around me. The connections forged beneath the struggles would anchor me to the support of those present. Tonight signifies more than just an elevation in rank, I proclaimed, feeling the energy pulsating through the crowd stronger than ever. It is a celebration of unity, a powerful testament that even in moments of limited belief, we can transcend expectations and recognize the shared humanity that binds us. I am deeply grateful for each of you in this room. Your encouragement has fueled my journey as much as the battles I've faced. In that instant, the applause heightened, becoming an ode to triumph, not just for me, but for all those whose stories were endlessly intertwined. I could sense the shift in the room growing, an understanding blossoming as every person grappled with their own narratives alongside mine. At that moment, however, I made a conscious decision to address my father directly. "Dad," I began, voice softening yet carrying the weight of my truth. I know our paths have been challenging, and I've often stood at a crossroads with expectations hovering over me. I've chosen to carve my own way, and while it took time, I hope you can begin to understand that the choices I made sprung from a place of deep passion and commitment. For the first time, I witnessed the flicker of realization cross his features, hesitation giving way to contemplation. It was a small but meaningful moment, one I dared to embrace. I didn't need immediate acceptance, but the seeds of understanding were beginning to take root. The applause around us swelled once again, lifting my spirits and driving me toward reconciliation. We're all simply trying to navigate our paths, I continued, but it is critical to acknowledge the struggles we've faced and the strength we've cultivated together through them. Growth doesn't happen within comfort. It begins in discomfort. With those words, I aimed to bridge the gulf that had long separated us. I felt an urging need to extend an olive branch, one that could lead us toward a future defined not by judgment, but by acceptance. I recognize the beauty in each journey, and I hope that in time, we can continue to find common ground, embracing the different shapes our paths have taken. As I looked around, the tide began to turn, and I could see others contemplating their journeys too. Some smiled softly, acknowledging the parallels in their own struggles. Conversations bubbled to life between individuals as we collectively embraced the power of our vulnerabilities. Jake even nudged my arm lightly, forming a supportive pillar beside me as I spoke. The world can sometimes seem daunting, filled with harsh criticisms, I said, effectively glancing at the lingering shadows of doubt in my father's eyes. But tonight serves as a reminder that we rise together, that in solidarity, we can indeed reach heights we never thought possible. The room filled with an infectious energy as the appreciation for shared experiences saturated the air. I was no longer just a face in a uniform. I had become a part of a much larger narrative that celebrated endurance, connection, and hope. In that moment, I committed not only to my own journey, but also to the relationships that surrounded me. I recognized the potential for forgiveness, for reshaping past grievances into something constructive. Together, we could embrace the lessons learned and move forward, united as a more profound collective than before. As the evening continued on, I immersed myself in the warmth of the embrace, the laughter, and the healing understanding that washed over us. Each connection strengthened, each smile and nod, reminding us all of the importance of solidarity in the face of adversity. Tonight marked not just a personal triumph, but a shared evolution, a milestone in allowing our stories to resonate into the future. And as the night wore on, I stepped forward and into my role, not just as Admiral Williams, but as an advocate for shared stories, for inclusion, and for forging a path where every dreamer would find their voice and live to their fullest potential. Together, we stood ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, and I understood in that moment. The tides had shifted not only in my journey, but in the journey of everyone around me. We would rise together, stronger than ever, connected by a shared belief that our stories could be transformative, both individually and collectively. Let me know if you would like to make any further adjustments or if you're ready to proceed with the next block. As the evening progressed, I felt a wave of exhilaration rippling through the room, buoyed by the electrifying atmosphere that pulsed with hope and potential. I had come to terms with my past, and the once looming specter of doubt began to dissipate as the laughter and warmth of reconciliation enveloped me. Yet, amid the joy and the shared celebrations, I could sense an undertow of tension, a reminder that not all were on board with the shifting dynamics. As the SEALs formed a steady presence, I scanned the crowd for familiar faces among the many. It was then that I caught sight of my father, standing at the periphery, arms crossed and brow furrowed. Despite his earlier concession of pride, there was a flicker of disconnect in his stance. A subtle shift in his body language reminded me that though public respect was growing, the personal journey toward acceptance would take much longer. My mother, ever the peacemaker, stood next to him, an expression of mixed emotions etched on her face. She wore a strained smile, as if torn between the desire to celebrate my achievements and the reluctance to fully embrace the transformation that had occurred within our family unit. I recognized the delicate balancing act. She often found herself caught between my father's steadfast beliefs and my own aspirations. I made my way across the room, navigating through friends and well-wishers who offered congratulations and kind words of support. I paused to share moments with those who had witnessed my journey firsthand. The officers, fellow sailors, and SEALs, each with their unique stories of perseverance. Yet, a sense of urgency propelled me toward my parents, where the unspoken tension lingered. "Mom, Dad," I said as I approached, attempting to strike a tone of warmth despite the swirling uncertainty. "Thank you for being here tonight. Your presence means so much to me." My mother stepped forward, and I wrapped her in a gentle hug, sensing her quiet support in the face of my father's hesitation. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice warm but laced with worry for the underlying rift still present. I turned to my father, whose stoic demeanor seemed unyielding, even in the bright light of the celebration. "Dad, I know this is a lot to take in," I said, hoping to diffuse the tension. "But I want you to understand how much this means to me, to have you here tonight. It's a step forward for us." He remained silent for a moment, his expression shifting as he processed my words. And then he spoke, his voice tinged with skepticism. "You've always been strong, Sarah, but changing how people perceive you won't alter who you are at your core." There it was, the familiar edge of dismissal that had echoed through childhood family gatherings, and I felt the sharp sting of his words even among the warmth of the evening. The crowd around us continued to celebrate, yet here I stood, grappling with the weight of doubt that threatened to unravel the night. "I am still me, Dad," I responded, resolve building within me. In fact, this journey has only deepened my understanding of myself and my purpose. What I have achieved is not solely for others to perceive, but for me to own. I've fought against the tides of expectation to get here. Robert stood slightly behind our father, uncertainty creeping into his expression. I could tell he felt torn between loyalty to our father and pride for me. Memories of the many times I had fought to prove myself flooded back, times spent trying to forge my path while bearing the weight of familial expectations. I hoped that by sharing my truth, I could open the door for deeper understanding. But it was my father's next words that pressed upon me like an anchor threatening to pull me under. "I just don't know if this is what we should be celebrating, Sarah. It feels like a departure from what I understand to be true. You are still my child, yet I feel I don't know who you've become." The reverberation of his blunt honesty struck me deeply. My heart sank for a moment, grappling with the realization that my accomplishments were not enough to erase the past misunderstandings that clouded his perception. I had climbed a mountain of achievements, but the chasm between us remained, echoing with the pain of unacknowledged differences. "I want you to know that my choices do not mean I've lost who I am. They've helped me create the best version of myself," I said with intensity, allowing every ounce of emotion to flow through me. "I still have the same values of family, loyalty, and dedication that you instilled in me. This is an evolution, not a disconnection." Jake stepped forward, sensing the rising tension around us. "Sir, I understand your concerns, but I see your daughter, a strong leader who has earned respect through her service. Shouldn't we celebrate her achievements rather than question the validity of her path? All of us here tonight look up to her." His words were supportive, but I sensed an underlying tension. Not everyone shared this appreciation. A few voices drifted through the crowd, whispering doubts and misjudgments, reflective of the attitudes I battled throughout my career. I recognized the undertones of opposition from some family members who hadn't had the opportunity to see beyond the traditionalism that had kept them tethered to old ideals. Respect is one thing, Jake, Robert interjected, glancing between me and our parents. But I just think we need to tread carefully. This system, this life her choices represent, might not lead to the kind of stability we associate with success. Over the milling crowd, I could feel the weight of unspoken judgments resurface, a reminder that some still viewed my chosen path through a narrow lens. Others had been dismissed by their families for pursuing similar trajectories, but I had fought through the trials to emerge, yet their perspectives lingered as barriers between our understanding. I took a deep breath, steeling myself as I faced my father. There's always going to be opposition, Dad, but I refuse to back down from who I am and what I believe. It's part of the journey we all must undertake, to find our purpose amidst conflicting opinions. The energy in the room shifted slightly, and I could sense the curiosity and respect of my fellow officers, who had gathered quietly around me. It was a palpable reminder that I was not alone, for they had experienced similar battles of identity and acceptance. As they stepped closer, their solidarity fortified my resolve. Need I remind you that all paths are unique? I raised my voice gently, trying to break through the skepticism. What defines success varies for each person. It's about internal validation and the courage to live authentically. I'm fighting for that, just as you once fought for the ideals you hold dear. My gaze swept over my father's face, expecting to see the same resolve, but instead, I was met with uncertainty, lingering in the contours of his expression. Perhaps he feared that my victory would come at the expense of traditional values, yet I craved a union of past and present, a blending of our histories that honored each of our journeys. The crowd's murmurs grew quieter as they absorbed my words, weighing them against the reality they all shared. A spectrum of diverse aspirations hitched to individual truths. The insecurities I once felt began to ebb as I saw the smiles of fellow officers and friends standing beside me. Still, I knew it would take time to fulfill the promise of understanding. What the night needed now was an avenue toward healing, a bridge to reconcile our beliefs. So I took another step forward, anchoring the moment in hope. Perhaps tonight we can allow the conversation to continue, I suggested, sensing the urgency of connection in the air. Let's share our stories, our aspirations, and perhaps through those discussions, we can foster a deeper understanding, one where my choices integrate with yours and culminate in the respect we all seek. My mother's gaze softened, her gaze moving between my father and me, as she gently placed her hand on his arm. Honey, maybe we could all benefit from exploring perspectives we've covered in judgment, she added in a voice of gentle encouragement. Sarah's journey, while different, doesn't diminish ours. It allows us to understand the possibilities before us. Finally, I turned back to the people who stood as my unwavering supporters, a tide of solidarity that infused me with hope. Tonight is not just for me, it's for all of us, an opportunity to embrace potential and healing. Instead of letting doubts divide us, let's allow empathy to unite us. As I spoke those words, a shift in the atmosphere built, fueled by the understanding that healing takes time, but begins with a conversation. I felt it take form, a tangible bond of acknowledgement among the crowd that encouraged a willingness to confront the doubts head-on. The applause broke out once more, this time more profound, an affirmation of hope, a call for change, a commitment to fostering understanding. I felt the resonance of my intentions reach the hearts of those within the room, and together, as stories were shared and laughter rang out, we built the foundation for the resilient future I had envisioned. Let me know if you would like to make any further adjustments or if you're ready to proceed with the next block. As the cheers subsided, I took another moment to absorb the transformation that had begun to unfold among my family and friends. The air felt charged, rich with possibility and hope, a realization dawning that the stories we carried could serve as threads weaving us closer together rather than delineating our differences. Time rolled on, and conversations blossomed throughout the gathering. I watched as my mother took a step toward my father, perhaps to gently outline the importance of this moment, not just for me, but for us all. Their quiet but earnest discussion reflected a budding understanding that crackled like electricity, igniting the possibility of reconciliation. I loved seeing friends clustered in groups, laughing and sharing tales about their own journeys, unraveling fears, triumphs, and everything in between. The camaraderie that filled the room was infectious, and I couldn't help but feel warmth spreading through my chest. Jake sidled up to me, his expression a mix of admiration and quiet joy. "You handled that beautifully, Sarah. The way you spoke about your journey resonated with everyone. You turned what could have been an uncomfortable confrontation into a path toward understanding." "Thank you, Jake," I replied, humbled by his words. "It's not just about my journey. It's about every single person in this room. We all have stories that deserve to be heard, and I believe that only through those conversations can we truly transform." "I can see that." He smiled thoughtfully. "You've shown everyone that vulnerability can be a powerful tool. I've seen many people who were victims of doubt break through walls tonight. You've created a new narrative here." As we exchanged encouraging words, I turned my gaze back to my father. He was now engaged in dialogue with my mother, and, surprisingly, Robert had joined them too. The three stood deep in conversation, their heads lowered, voices low yet animated. I felt an unfamiliar flutter of hope take root in my heart as I observed the animated expressions on their faces. And then it hit me. These moments, crafted from understanding and courage, rippled outward beyond the night's festivities. I had enacted change not just within myself, but within my family and community. Opening up a dialogue was merely the first step. This gathering had become a vessel for healing, a platform for carving a space for our intertwined stories to flourish. A subtle buzz ran through the room as people began forming intentional circles, some sharing their journeys with vulnerability, and others recounting moments of doubt and fears they had long held inside. I could see how their faces shifted, reflecting newfound strength in each shared experience. In that setting, I was reminded of the camaraderie and shared mission that defined our lives as Navy officers. Within these walls, we were not just soldiers, we were each other's sanctuary, navigating life and conflict as a community that shared tales of valor and sacrifice. Eventually, I stepped back, a sense of awe enveloping me as I listened to the stories around me. Each voice resonated with confidence as energy filled the space, reinforcing what I'd always believed. Our struggles, our journeys, were meant to be shared. Each individual mattered, and we had the power to uplift one another. I glanced at my brother, who seemed to be holding court among a small group, his kind laughter mingling with theirs. It was a stark contrast to their earlier discomfort. Each seed of doubt they had held onto uprooted and disposed of, now providing a fertile ground for empathy to grow. Then my gaze drifted back to my parents, still locked in conversation. I saw my mother's hand resting on my father's arm, an act that spoke volumes in the language of connection. Her smile illuminated the budding warmth of understanding. I scanned my father's features, searching for that flicker of recognition that could bridge the gap created by rigid perceptions over the years. I remembered the painful exchanges we had shared, reliving moments stilted by misunderstanding. Growing up, I had so desperately wanted his approval, desiring nothing more than for him to recognize the strength within my choices. Yet on that night, I felt the dawning realization of my own self-worth. My identity as a Navy officer, my achievements, and my journey were valid. They never needed to justify themselves to anyone. Suddenly, Robert caught my eye, a wide smile breaking across his face as he approached. "I think Dad is finally seeing what we all see in you, Sarah," he said, a hint of disbelief woven into his tone. "What do you mean?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. He's actively listening, he responded, gesturing toward my parents. In the past, it felt like he only focused on what he thought he wanted for you. But tonight is different. You created space for conversation, and it's resonating with him. There's a shift happening. I felt my heart race. For so long, I had desperately hoped for a breakthrough, and this glimpse of progress filled me with determination. I approached the trio as they engaged in thoughtful discussion, respect woven into their exchange. "May I join you?" I asked, my voice steady but filled with hope. All eyes turned to me. My father nodded slowly, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the air shift subtly around us into a more inviting space. "Of course," he welcomed, his tone softer than usual. "We were just discussing how we might redefine our family narrative, particularly in light of your journey." I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I held firm. This conversation mattered deeply. "I would love that," I said, embracing the momentum of healing. "Our stories are interconnected, and I hope we can acknowledge the different paths we each have taken to reach this point. Maybe we can truly understand and support one another as family." My mother beamed at the openness, while Robert stepped away to allow us privacy. The four of us stood together, soaking in the importance of this moment, a shared appreciation that flowed as we navigated the road ahead. "I realize I may not always have acknowledged the complexities of your journey," my father admitted finally, his voice heavy but sincere. "In the past, I might have pushed you toward a path I understood better, but I see now that I may have inadvertently stifled your growth." I felt relief wash over me, realizing that he was expressing what had long been on my mind. This acknowledgement created a bridge, a catalyst for nurturing vulnerability, acceptance, and deeper connections. "Thank you for recognizing that, Dad. I want us to embrace our differences while finding strength in our shared goals. Especially now, it feels like a new beginning for our family," I said. "It is," my mother added with a gentle smile. "Let's allow our conversations to evolve as we redefine what family support looks like. We all deserve encouragement, no matter the direction our paths take." In that moment, the air felt lighter, imbued with understanding instead of fear. I felt grateful that tonight had unfolded so organically, revealing not just my evolution, but the growth of our family as well. This was no longer a solitary journey. I was surrounded by the people I loved, all encompassed by the strength of our mutual affection. As we embraced the journey ahead, I knew we had planted the seeds of change, nurturing understanding and empathy. The night had ignited a transformative experience, filled with heartfelt deliberation and new possibilities. I glanced out at the crowd, still mingling and connecting as the laughter and warmth echoed around us, a lively celebration of renewed bonds. That was the beauty of vulnerability. It bridged the spaces between us, creating connections that resonated with every story shared. "Together, we can rewrite our narratives," I softly promised, feeling the excitement bubbling within me. "The past may shape us, but it doesn't need to define our future. Let's walk shoulder to shoulder toward a new narrative, one etched in understanding, love, and respect." In that moment, I realized that the night was leaving a profound legacy. Together, we had transformed doubts into hope, woven our stories into a unified tapestry, and built a foundation for the struggles we had yet to face. We were bound by love, not just as a family, but also as a community willing to embark on a new journey together. And with that, I stepped forward, ready to embrace a renewed sense of purpose as we forged ahead. One heart, one story, one future. Let me know if you would like to make any further adjustments, or if you're ready to proceed with the next block.